Fresh from supporting Guns N' Roses at Hyde Park, I'm joined by John Drake of the Coda. At the time of this release, people will know that you're about to go and do a support slot with Guns N' Roses. How do you feel about this? I mean, this must be the dream.
To play and support Guns N' Roses is like, for someone in a rock band, it's like the ultimate, man. It's like supporting Led Zeppelin, or it's, for me personally, you know. Some people might be like, what? But no, for me, like, Guns N' Roses are pretty much the reason I started making rock music, you know. I started playing guitar because of Guns N' Roses. Being that kid at 10 years old, kind of just wanting to make rock and roll, and then being like, getting to go and play like Hyde Park and supporting that band along with other great acts like The Darkness and Pretenders and Lark and Poe. It's just like, it's kind of a dream. I'm not going to downplay it. It's a massive thing for me. Singing to me is a leap of faith a lot of the time. I went through a period after the pandemic, because we hadn't been touring, we hadn't been playing any shows, where I really feared that I couldn't sing like I used to. So I was genuinely afraid that I wouldn't be able to sing properly on this record. I was like, yeah, I was really worried. I was like, I'm not going to be able to deliver like I delivered on Mojo.
We're just
I felt, having listened to it, I feel like, you know, it's undeniably Coda, but it also has these new elements in there.
It was kind of who gives a fuck? Let's just do something fucking wild, and let's not second guess what we should be doing. Let's just fucking go for it, you know.
So I'm here with John Drake of the Coda. Thank you very much for joining me, John.
Pleasure, mate.
So the last time we spoke was just before the release of the second record, Mojo Skyline. Of course, that was greeted with critical acclaim. Classic Rock Magazine giving it 4 out of 5 stars. What were your kind of feelings around that wave of positivity? I mean, did you guys kind of realize that was going to be the album that would elevate you up? I mean, I was made aware of you because of Mojo Skyline. I'm sure a lot of people were.
It's weird, like, you never know, you know. Interestingly, we made that album independently, and then when we signed with our record label, they kind of, you know, took it off us and did a deal with us on that album. So it was one of these things where no one was really interested in us, as from a label perspective. No one was, you know, we'd shopped Mojo Skyline to loads of labels, and they all kind of were like, I'm not going to say which labels, but they were like, yeah, it's just pretty stock standard rock music. No one's into rock music. And we were like, yeah, whatever, fuck off. What do you know? And then, you know, so when we signed to Earache, they loved it. And so I was like, oh, okay, someone does get it. So it's kind of 50-50 with me, because sometimes I'm like, oh, this is amazing. We've made a great record. I'm really proud of it. I knew it was, you know, I knew for me, I was like, I knew this is a great record. We worked really hard. We crafted the songs. The production's pristine. Clint Murphy just nailed it. But on the other hand, you're like, well, I don't know what people are going to think. Some people might just be like, or the general public might just be like, well, what's this shit? So I go between the two kind of parameters, you know. But it was very exciting when I started seeing people getting really amped about it, especially when we toured that record. That was the cool part. When we started, you know, when we did our tour, the Mojo tour, and we were like looking out in the audience and seeing like stacks of people singing the songs, all like word to word, word for word. That was cool. I mean, one of the coolest things that ever happened off the back of Mojo was we did a show in Spain. We did Rock Imperium Festival, and White Snake and Scorpions in Europe and Black Label Society were kind of the headliners, and we did a show at like 3 a.m. And it was like classic Spanish festivals. Like you're thinking, well, no one's going to turn up at 3 a.m, but that's how they party out there, man. Like we went on stage to do our show, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, Ryan, and there's thousands of kids out there, and they know every word.
Wow.
Like they're all singing TDC songs, and they're like going bananas. And we just look at each other going, this is the fucking shit, man. And that's when I was like, wow, this is starting to travel. It was so exciting. That was a really good moment. Yeah.
Of course, your third album, which is on the way, Loco Paradise, which will be out on July 7th.
Yeah.
Did you look to approach this album any differently this time around? I mean, I've felt, having listened to it, I feel like, it's undeniably does Coda, but it also has these new elements in there. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of that acoustic guitar this time around, which we didn't hear before.
It wasn't like right, guys, let's sit down and have a meeting. Let's do a different album approach. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a, who gives a fuck? Let's just do something fucking wild, and let's not second guess what we should be doing. Let's just fucking go for it, And like in the writing process, Adam and I, every song's different, but there would be times where, with some of the songs, where he'd bring me this arrangement. I'd be like, it's just an instrumental arrangement, and I'd be like, what the fuck is he talking about? And like, I'd be like, this is nuts. And I'd sit there and I'd come around to his flat. This is what happens when he writes some of like the pieces of music for some of the songs. If he starts the track, I'll come around and I'll have a beer and I'll sit in his front room, and he'll play it just on his own, and he'll just break down the parts to me, and then be like, okay. I'd be like, okay, right. And then I'll be like, can you play that again? And I'll be like, fucking hell, what's he doing here? And then finally the pin will drop, and I'll go, oh, right, I get it. Cool. And then I'll start jamming, singing on top, or like making notes, or like be like, let's change this, or, this needs this, or I'll start singing on top of something. But we never set out to make something specific. It was just more like we were quite fearless with the whole process. We were like, if a song's going to be 6 minutes long, that's cool. As long as everything makes sense, as long as it has an ebb and flow, and as long as there's a story there. From a kind of, like a textured point of view, I was really excited to get more acoustic guitars on, because I felt like as a band, a lot of our songs get written on the acoustic guitar. Like I write pretty much 90% of the songs that I bring to the table, I write an acoustic guitar. So having that fuse into the band is cool. And, acoustic guitars can bring out so many different things. So we just kind of went in with zero fucks given, and just thought, as long as the songs are great, as long as you can sing the songs and it makes sense and there's a journey, fuck it, whatever, see what happens.
I mean, I found it interesting that, you have gone in a slightly different direction, because I think a trap that a lot of bands can fall into off the back of a very successful album is to do essentially more of the same.
Yeah.
And then it ends up kind of not being quite as good, or it can run into that kind of like, well, it's just more of the same. And, I think it's a brave decision, but, it's still got that overall Dust Coda identity. And I think, it's that perfect balance, I feel.
Well, that's good. I'm glad it's still us.
Yeah, it's still undeniable. Like, as soon as your voice comes in, as soon as I hear those riffs, I know it's Dust Coda. But it feels like, maybe the next evolution of the band. It's moved to this next kind of stage. Like, you're trying new things.
Yeah, I think that's it, really. I think we still wanted to, throw in all the rockers and the riffy kind of chorusy songs, but there was this element of like, I want to really do like a really cool, acoustic. I want to get more involved with percussive elements. I want to feel out the melodies more in certain parts, and go down low and create some real dynamics throughout the album and textures and moods, that kind of are all, organic, and that kind of take you somewhere else. And the writing part was really fun and interesting for that, because we're like, let's just have no barriers, and let's just, if it sounds cool and it feels like us, let's do it. There was no preconceived concept of what it had to be. We just knew we needed to make sure the song sounded great, and we felt like it was us doing it. It was authentic to our style.
The latest single, Fair Weather Love, could you talk a bit about that song and how it came about, maybe the meaning behind it?
So yeah, I mean, that song came about behind me. I wrote this song in lockdown, on that guitar, sitting up on that wall. I wrote it over a couple of days. It's kind of for me, it's kind of one of the more epic style songs that I brought to the band. Usually Adam brings a lot of the more longer songs as a template musically, and then I'll write the lyrics and melodies. But this one, I had this vision of the song, and it just took me a while to flesh it out. So I remember just spending a couple of days just fleshing out this kind of big, long story. And I just felt like, I kind of wanted it to be like a cross between like Under Pressure and something off Super Unknown, cross with The Who, like, what's that song, The Who? Nobody knows what it's like to be a dun-dun.
Yeah, no.
So I had this feeling in my, like, I had this feeling that I was getting from the music, which is like, I wanted this, the verses, I wanted to be very much like that Who song. Obviously the melody's different, but that capture that essence of that kind of 60s kind of feel, and a bit of a kind of Queen, but Under Pressure vibe, and then have it just explode into this giant kind of climax. And I mean, I fucked about on that for days. I just kept on refining it. My neighbors downstairs must have been like, what is this guy doing? He's playing the same song like 6 hours a day, just fleshing it out. And then I kind of put a demo down. I just started singing and then double tracking my vocals, because there's lots of, vocals going all over the place, which was really fun. Because I wanted to get kind of orchestral with my vocals on that. And yeah, and the song's about a relationship that was kind of, I had a few years ago that didn't end very well. And it was all very kind of transactional, and was very, in the end, felt quite meaningless, even though at the time it was a lot of excitement, but also a lot of dark patches.
Of course, at the time of this release, people will know that you're about to go and do a support slot with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
How do you, I mean, we spoke a little bit before we went on air there. How do you feel about this? I mean, this must be the dream.
Me. I mean, at the time of the release of this wonderful podcast, I think we might have even played it. Right. Talking to our future selves, right? I mean, to play and support Guns N' Roses is like, for someone in a rock band, it's like the ultimate, man. It's like supporting Led Zeppelin, or it's, for me personally, some people might be like, what? But no, for me, like, Guns N' Roses are pretty much the reason I started making rock music. I started playing guitar because of Guns N' Roses when I was 10 years old. Some kid back in Brisbane, listening to a cassette tape of from some kid who passed a blank tape to him on the school bus and went home and listened to it. So to go from, being that kid at 10 years old, kind of just wanting to make rock and roll, and then being like getting to go and play like Hyde Park and supporting that band along with other great acts like The Darkness and Pretenders and Lark and Poe. It's just like, it's kind of a dream. I'm not going to downplay it. It's a massive thing for us. It's like, yeah, man, this is killer. Like, and also just to be on the poster. Fuck yeah.
I mean, I'd be getting it framed. I'd be putting it on the wall, you know.
Dude, what do you mean? It's going to be my wallpaper around my whole flat.
Yeah.
The whole flat's going to be covered in that orange. You've seen the flyers. Yeah. Fuck that, man. There'll be a room, which is like anyone who walks in. By the way, yeah.
Yeah. Because that's going to be the thing in years' time. You're going to be, did you know I played with Guns N' Roses?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that as time goes on, there'll be more highlights for this band, and it won't be like such.
Yeah.
But also, I'd like to think that I don't get jaded by that. I'd like to think that any new cool thing that comes along, it's not like, oh yeah, we've done that. It's like, nah, everything, every new experience you have, as a performer, wherever it takes you, is awesome. So, to do British Summertimes. It's rad. It's like, because it's such a cool festival. And also Hyde Park has got so many great historical moments. When the Stones did the free gig in Hyde Park, 40 years ago or 50 years ago, it's like, that shit's so cool. And then, you've got all these legends who play there. So I'm very excited about that.
How do you think you're going to feel? I mean, stepping out to what I would imagine maybe your biggest crowd?
I think I'm not even going to think about it. I think I'm just going to be like, right, let's get to fucking work. I know the first thing I'll be thinking when I work out is, are my in-ears working? When I open my mouth, is sound going to come out of my, of my mouth? I think it's going to be a short set, and those short sets, when there's so much adrenaline, when you're playing big audiences, the adrenaline's just in there, and as soon as you walk on stage, it's just like you're just buzzing. So I think it's just it'll go by in a heartbeat. I'll get off stage and I'll be like, did we just do that? And I won't even remember it, and then I'll look back and go, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it's a surreal thing, I think.
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, I spoke a while back with Cormac Neeson, from The Answer.
Oh, yeah.
And he spoke about supporting AC/DC. So coming out to, it was like 100,000 people.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to him, how do you even like comprehend that? Just a sea of people. And he was like, beforehand you're like bricking it.
Yeah.
But when you go out, you don't even think of that.
Well, you just get to work.
Yeah, it becomes like you're just in that moment. So I'm sure. Yeah,
absolutely. I get it. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to feel. For me personally, if I'm relaxed before I go on stage and I know that technically everything's fine and the crew are like on top of it and there's no issues, I'm just like, great. So for me, it's all about being relaxed backstage, and then I'll walk on stage and I'll be like, fuck yes. Yeah. This is the shit.
Going back to the record, one of my personal favorites on there is Lovesick, which I believe there was a different version of that, wasn't there, on a prior EP at some point? I do remember hearing it somewhere.
There's an EP we released, an independent EP we released years ago. It's available on all the platforms of like an acoustic version of it.
Yeah. When you were kind of making this album, how do you arrive at selecting these particular songs? I mean, obviously that was one that was in the back catalogue. Is it like picking a favorite child of which one stays, which one goes,
So we usually have about 25 songs. Some are very, very very close to being finished from a writing perspective. Some are like loose ideas that we think are really awesome, that we somehow think there's a spark there that can be refined. And then that gets narrowed down to about 17 songs. And then Mackie and I'll bring that to the band, and we'll just rehearse the crap out of all the songs, and we'll work it into, the band. Us playing it in a room, just the four of us. And it's got to cook in that context. If it ain't cooking then, forget about it. If a song just doesn't feel great, there's the four of us playing and we just can't get it to vibe, it doesn't make the grade. And I mean, some songs don't connect as well as others, but we kind of bear with them because we might have a vision. But then we go into a studio and do pre-production, and we record all the songs live in pre-production, start to finish, bang, like we're doing a gig, except I won't sing on and I'll sing on after. And that's the kind of the fun part. For us, that's the real work, because we hammer away at it and we rehearse and we get it really, really tight. And we go into a studio for like a day or two and just bang out 15 songs live. Then we take that back away from us and go, okay, right, give it to the label. The label has a bit of input about what they think are the really great songs. And we kind of sit there and go, right, of those 15, 16 songs or whatever, what 5 do we not take with us? And often it's dependent on how they all sit together. Like, how does the kind of trajectory of the album make you feel when you listen to it? Because some of the tracks that didn't make Mojo were great, but they just didn't work. Same with this album. It's like there's some pretty cool songs that haven't made the album, but it's just getting the mix right of all the different songs that work well together. And we argue and and then we kind of eventually go, okay, right, I see your point. Or I might be like, what do you mean we're losing this song? And Adam might be like, well, no, this one's better. I'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then eventually we'll kind of come around to the idea of, what the album's going to be. And then we go in the studio and make the bloody thing. Bash it out.
Of course, I noticed there are currently 2 bonus tracks on the album, Edge of the Knife and Means to Me. Will they be on on one particular format? I mean, obviously, I know that you've got the vinyl coming out. Will it be exclusive to CD, or will it be?
They won't be on vinyl. They'll be on. I think they're doing like a USB stick release, and I think they're doing a CD release where I think they'll be making the CD as well. I think. I mean, Edge of the Knife to me, it's probably one of my favorite songs off the album. I love it. It's like nasty and mean, and it's rocking, and it's like everything I love about rock and roll. I feel like I'm in AC/DC and Guns N' Roses all at once when we play that song. It's so much fun. I love it. Every time I play it, I'm just like, yes.
Is there a reason behind 2 bonus? I mean, normally I'll see a bonus track and it'll just be like the one. Was it the fact that you just couldn't miss one off?
I personally didn't think Means to Me was that great a song.
Interesting.
It's not my best. It's one I brought to the table. I still think it's good. The band sounds good. I think the label, the label only wants to put, there's only enough room on one vinyl, right? Because we can't make a double album. It's for many reasons. So it was like, you got to make a decision. So I think Means to Me was probably a weak link from a writing perspective. Having said that, there are some really great moments on it. The outro of that song Mackie does a really great guitar solo, and the band sounds pretty hot. It's great. I just don't think it's the best song I've ever written before. But Edge of the Knife was just more, again, making a call, really. You kind of work with the label, everyone kind of has their opinions, and then a decision gets made.
Do you have a favorite song that's outside of that bonus track? Do you have one on the main record there that maybe for people to keep an eye out for?
I would say Free All the Dancers. That to me I think is one of the most unique songs that we've ever written. It takes you on a journey. It's very, it's not conventional. It's there's so much to it, and we really experimented a lot with it. And I'm really proud of the vocals on it. I think I did a really good job on the vocals. And just the arrangement's just beautiful, I love the outro. It's like our Layla.
Is there?
Yeah, man.
I mean, it's something that kind of stuck out to me on the record is, I mean, your vocals. Again, it feels like each time you're getting stronger with your vocals. Is there a process that you go through there? I mean, it's this time. I mean, you're hitting some very high notes this time. I mean, like.
You know what's funny is, it's really funny because I'm like, oh fuck, John, how are you going to pull this off? Every time I make a record, I'm like, how am I going to do this? Can't what? But that's just what comes out when we make these songs. Is there a process? There's a process for warming up to making a record and rehearsing and practicing the songs. And it's just practice. I have some warm-ups that I do, but I also have to be careful of not thinking about it too much and getting into my own head and just doing it, getting warm and just singing the bloody things and just going for it. Singing to me is a leap of faith a lot of the time. I went through a period after the pandemic because we hadn't been touring, we hadn't been playing any shows, where I really feared that I couldn't sing like I used to. So I was genuinely afraid that I wouldn't be able to sing properly on this record. I was like, I was really worried. I was like, I'm not going to be able to deliver like I delivered on Mojo. And so I got kind of wound up about that and wound myself up. And then I just kind of went to the studio and fucking did it. And just was like, just do it. Just go for it. But I am pleased to hear the responses for the vocals are great, because I definitely had my journeys with the singing on that, trying to do what I heard in my head. But I kind of got there. So I am very proud of some of the performances. I think I've really got a new level. Fuck knows how I'm going to do that every night, but
I was going to say, it feels like you set yourself a bit of a challenge there. I mean, there's a lot of this record. I'm not much of a singer, but it feels like you're quite high up there. If you're going to be doing a tour, that's going to be an interesting challenge.
Oh, you're telling me, man. Jeez. Like, I don't know. You have your little tricks as a singer that don't let you blow your voice out in the first two nights. You have different methods that you use to kind of use the microphone to the best of its ability and still get the tone and the projection right without destroying yourself. Because to be honest, you can't sing like you sing on the record night after night.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And anyone who says they can is, I think, full of shit. I think even the greatest artists, Axl, Chris Cornell, Brian Johnson, they all have a way of almost manipulating their voice to project and sound like the record without exhausting themselves. And you have to, because the audience want to hear it like the record, but they also want to hear that you're like a human being and, you know, getting into it. If you're having a good time, they're having a good time.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
A question I always like to finish on for returning guests that kind of links to albums. If you could go back and guest on an album or kind of just be around the making of it, what would that album be?
Oh, as in any album?
Yeah. So you could even be on it. Like you could pinch a roll.
Oh, just one?
Yeah, I mean, it's if that's your pinnacle, like if there's one,
just one. Oh, oh, fuck! I'm just looking at my record collection now. It's right next to me.
I mean, you mentioned obviously before this you were talking about Tommy Emmanuel from your childhood. I mean, that could be an interesting guest. I mean, no vocals.
No vocals. I mean, God, to sing with Tommy Emmanuel would be amazing. As we said before, my dad used to take me to see Tommy Emmanuel play in front of like a couple of hundred people when I was like 10 years. I think I met him once actually when I was like 10 years old, maybe 11 years old. This is in front of like, you know, literally like, what even 200 people? Like when, you know, we're talking a long time ago. So an album that I would love to have appeared on. I mean, this is kind of a bit left field.
Ooh.
But like, I'm torn between saying something that everyone will go, oh yeah, that makes sense, but also saying what I really feel.
You gotta go. I mean, this is your choice, so it's entirely your.
If I could have appeared on Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, had been at that session, if I'd been at if I'd been at that session, just playing guitar and singing backing vocals, whilst you know, if You See Her Say Hello was being tracked, I mean, that just would have been unbelievable to see that record being made. Just that to me is like one of the most, I think probably the most heart-wrenching, beautiful albums ever made. It's like watching a film. Yeah.
It would always be interesting with like a historic album like that. I've always thought like, just to see how they see what that process was like.
He recorded it twice. When he first recorded it, I think in New York, and it was kind of the more acoustic-y kind of tracks without all the instrumentation, and you can hear it now. It's available. There's an album called More Blood, More Tracks, and they were the original sessions. But he sounded too heartbroken and too full on, and it was just fucking miserable because he'd just broken up with his wife at the time of like 10 years. And it was just too much. I think maybe the label decided or whatever, or he decided this is too much. And then he came back and recorded the classic version that we all know. But if you want to go and hear someone fucking dying of a broken heart, you go and listen to More Blood, More Tracks. It's the outtakes. It's just like, it's deep.
So essentially, when I go and see a broken man singing his heart out.
yeah. But it's singing the most beautiful fucking poetry ever. Yeah.
No, it'd be interesting. I mean, it's not, as you say, it's not an immediate obvious choice.
No.
What would have been your obvious one? I'm curious. Would you have gone with Guns N' Roses? I mean, there's a tie in there.
Do you know what I would have been on? I would have loved to have been at the sessions for Chris Cornell's solo album, Higher Truth. That to me is one of the most beautiful records. I mean, what's really dark and twisted about it is I think there's parts of that album where he's actually alluding to his state of mental health at the time, and almost not prophesizing, but there are elements like the song Dead Wishes. or Worried Moon. Fucking beautiful songs. And lyrically, what he's talking about is a lot of stuff, and you're like, oh man, were you kind of letting us know what the state you're in, but you weren't even acknowledging it yourself? It just came out in the songs, and then retrospectively, after he died, I just still listen to it. It breaks my heart. I'm just like, I still every year just cannot believe that he's gone as an artist. I mean, he seemed like such a cool dude as well.
It's something I didn't see coming. I mean,
no,
not until you, as you've mentioned there, if you look back on a couple of things now, you think, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the time, it's a weird one. I mean, it's an interesting thing. You've gone with two quite dark choices there. Do you like that kind of deeper kind of themes in a record?
Yeah, massively. I mean, I love all the rock and stuff, but for me, it's about connection, man. I like stuff that connects, and it connects over a long period of time, and it connects and it evolves. The way a song makes you feel today will make you feel differently in 6 months or a year or 10 years. And that's what I love about music. And it's the deep stuff that goes into all sorts of directions that really gets me. It's like, one of my favorite records is Beck's album Sea Change. All that. I'm a massive fan of all those singer-songwriters. Like, I'm a huge Radiohead fan. I started singing because of Radiohead, funnily enough. In Rainbows, Radiohead's record In Rainbows, just what a journey.
It's interesting. I mean, I've always found, particularly with music and albums, you almost, I don't know whether it's a human thing, you kind of connect experiences to certain albums or certain songs at certain points of your life.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of people kind of connect a lot of Leonard Skinner to summer and doing summer things. It's unusual, you know what I mean? Like like going out doing certain stuff. I mean, I suppose like these kind of darker albums, maybe it's relatable. Maybe that's something people pick up on.
Well, it just takes you out of your regular life, and I think people just feel like I think all people just feel like they need to connect to something, right? It's just about not feeling alone.
Yeah, that's true.
Or maybe that's just me.
No, I think, yeah, I do get that. I mean, particularly with that, maybe if somebody's having a difficult period, if you're hearing something that's kind of similar or relatable, maybe just knowing that happens to other people is a thing there.
Oh, for sure. I think that's why so many people get into music. I think that's why so many people can't live without music.
No, I agree.
I'm well without music.
I know. Well, thank you very much for joining me, John. And of course, for those that want to check out the brand new Coda album, Loco Paradise, that'll be out on July the 7th. And the link will be available for that to pre-order below. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, mate. It's been a pleasure.
It's been cool, man.